Hello guys, welcome to Fiction Quest. So in this video, we will see, what if Naruto was summoned to DxD for mating with Rias, Akeno, and Kuroka? If you enjoy these kinds of stories, don't forget to show us some love by hitting the like button and subscribing to the channel. Your support means the world to us. Now, let's start the story. Chapter 1. Summon. D to the abyss. The stone floor was cold enough to make the hairs on Naruto's arms stand up. He blinked against the sudden darkness, the world a blur of shadows and flickering torchlight. The last thing he remembered was the roar of the nine tails as he pushed his chakra to its limit, a final Rasengan aimed at a monstrous shadow that had threatened the hidden leaf. Now, instead of the familiar rooftops of Konoha, he was lying on a slab of black marble, the scent of incense and something metallic, blood, hanging heavy in the air. A soft rustle drew his attention. He sat up, the muscles in his back protesting, and saw a figure step into the torchlight. She was tall, with crimson hair that fell in a perfect cascade over a black dress that seemed to swallow the light around it. Her eyes were a deep violet, sharp and calculating, but there was a flicker of curiosity as she surveyed him. "Welcome," she said, voice smooth as silk but edged with a hint of amusement. "I'm Rias Gremory, head of the Gremory family. You've been quite the surprise." Naruto pushed himself to his feet, the familiar weight of his headband snapping back into place. "Where am I? Who are you? And why does it smell like a demon's lair?" Rias raised an eyebrow, a faint smile tugging at the corner of her mouth. "You're in the underworld, Naruto Uzumaki. And as for the smell, you'll get used to it. We have a situation, and that requires a bit of unconventional help." Before Naruto could answer, a glaring red light burst from the far wall. A hulking figure, its skin a patchwork of scarred flesh and black armor, lunged forward. Its eyes glowed a sickly amber, and a guttural growl reverberated through the chamber. "Intruder!" the creature roared, brandishing a massive, jagged sword that seemed to drink the light. Naruto's reflexes kicked in. He dropped into a low stance, chakra swirling around his fingertips. "You're not getting anywhere near me," he muttered, and with a swift motion, a Rasengan formed in his palm. Spinning faster than any he'd ever made, the demon swung, the blade cutting a wide arc. Naruto sidestepped, the Rasengan colliding with the sword's edge. The impact sent a shockwave of blue-white light rippling through the room, shattering a nearby column into shards that clattered to the floor. Rias stepped back, eyes widening. "Impressive," she admitted, a note of respect threading her voice. "You've got more than just a knack for trouble." The demon staggered, its armor cracking under the force of the Rasengan. It let out a glaring howl and lunged again, this time aiming for Naruto's throat. Naruto's hand shot out, a second Rasengan forming in an instant, and he thrust it forward. The sphere of chakra slammed into the creature's chest, sending it flying backward into the wall. The impact left a crater, and the demon collapsed, its body dissolving into a puff of black smoke that drifted toward the ceiling. Silence fell, broken only by the crackle of the torches. Naruto breathed heavily, his chest rising and falling as he stared at the empty space where the monster had been. What was that?" he asked, voice low. Rias stepped closer, her hand hovering over the scar on his cheek. "A rogue devil. They're not uncommon here, but they usually don't get this far into the mansion without permission. Someone wanted to test you." Naruto's eyes narrowed. "Test me? I'm not here to be a pawn." A soft chuckle echoed from the shadows. A woman with silver hair and a serene smile emerged, her eyes glinting with a mix of mischief and something deeper. "You're a bold one, Naruto-kun," she said, her voice melodic. "I'm Akeno, the Gremory family's holy maid. I was curious about the newcomer." Naruto glanced between Rias and Akeno, sensing the undercurrent of power that thrummed between them. "You both seem important. I'm just a shinobi. I don't belong here." Rias crossed her arms, the faint sound of her dress rustling like dry leaves. "Belonging isn't about where you start, it's about what you do. We summoned you for a reason. There's a contract, an ancient pact, etched into that stone over there." She gestured to a massive slab of obsidian at the far end of the room, its her face covered in runes that pulsed faintly. Naruto walked toward it, his footsteps echoing. As he drew near, the runes flared brighter, casting a violet glow that bathed his face. He reached out, his fingertips brushing the cold stone. Instantly, a surge of energy shot up his arm, and images flashed through his mind. A battle between angels and demons, a towering figure cloaked in darkness, a voice whispering. Ophis. He pulled his hand back, breath ragged. What was that? Akeno placed a gentle hand on his shoulder. That, my dear Naruto, is the echo of a god that should have stayed buried. Ophis. The ancient serpent that once threatened both heaven and hell. The pact you're bound to, it's a fragment of that legend. It's why we called you. Rias's expression hardened. We need song. One who can walk between worlds without being bound by their rules. Someone who can fight without losing themselves to the darkness. You, Naruto, have the chakra of the 9 tails and the will of a shinobi. We need you to help us stop whatever is coming. Naruto stared at the stone, the runes still humming. He could feel the weight of countless eyes on him. Demons, angels, and something far older. The thought of a god awakening sent a cold shiver down his spine, but the fire in his chest burned brighter. He had always chased after a dream of becoming Hokage, of protecting his village. Now, EU village, an entire realm, might need his protection. He turned to Rias, his gaze steady. If there's a threat, I'll face it. But I need to know what I'm getting into. Who's pulling the strings? Who's behind this summoning? A soft rustle came from the far corner of the room. A figure stepped forward, cloaked in a dark, flowing robe that seemed to absorb the torchlight. The hood fell back, revealing a face that was both human and something else. Eyes like polished onyx, a scar running down one cheek. I am Valkyrie, the figure said, voice echoing as if from a great distance. Leader of the Celestial Tribunal. We have watched your world for centuries, and we have seen the signs. Ophis stirs, and the balance of all realms hangs by a thread. We chose you, Naruto Uzumaki, because you are the only one who can bridge the gap between the mortal and the divine. Naruto's eyebrows shot up. The Celestial Tribunal. You're angels. Valkyrie inclined her head. We are more than that. We are the keepers of order, the judges of fate. And we have a proposition. Help us seal Ophis, and you will have our gratitude. Refuse, and the consequences will be severe. A tense silence settled over the room. Naruto could feel the eyes of Rias, Akeno, and now Valkyrie boring into him. He thought of his friends back in Konoha, of the promise he made to never abandon those who needed him. He thought of the 9 tails, whose roar still echoed in his mind, urging him forward. He took a deep breath, the scent of incense and ozone filling his lungs. Fine, I'll help, but I'm not doing this alone. I'll need allies I can trust. Rias smiled, a flash of relief crossing her features. You already have us. Akeno stepped forward, her hand resting lightly on Naruto's arm. And we'll stand by you, no matter what comes. Valkyrie's eyes softened just a fraction. Then it is settled. The pact is sealed. The stone will bind you to this realm until the threat is ended. You will train with us, learn our ways, and together we will face Ophis. The runes on the stone flared one last time, a bright pulse that seemed to wrap around Naruto like a second skin. He felt a warm surge of energy flow through him, merging with his own chakra. It was as if the 9 tails power recognized a kindred spirit in the ancient magic. He looked up, meeting Rias's violet eyes. So, what's first? Rias gestured toward a massive door at the far end of the chamber. First, we introduce you to the rest of the household. Then we begin your training. And then, we find out who tried to sabotage the summoning. Naruto nodded, a grin spreading across his face despite the gravity of the situation. Sounds like a plan. Lead the way. The doors swung open, revealing a grand hallway lined with statues of demonic figures and a tapestry depicting a battle between angels and demons. As they walked, Naruto couldn't help but feel the weight of destiny settle on his shoulders, but also the thrill of a new adventure. He had left Konoha behind. But perhaps this was just another village to protect. The hallway led them to a massive courtyard bathed in the soft glow of twilight. Demons of all shapes and sizes milled about, some casting curious glances at the newcomer. Others continuing their own whispered conversations. In the center of the courtyard stood a towering tree, its branches twisted and dark, its trunk etched with same runes that had bound Naruto moments before. A figure stepped forward from the shadows, a woman with jet black hair and eyes that seemed to hold the depth of space itself. She wore a simple kimono, but there was an aura of power around her that made the air tremble. Kuroka, Rias introduced, our resident spacetime manipulator. She'll be your guide when you need to move, quickly. Kuroka inclined her head, a faint smile playing on her lips. Welcome, Naruto. I have sensed your arrival from the other side of the veil. It is interesting to have a shinobi among us. Naruto returned the smile, feeling a strange sense of familiarity with her, as if they had met in another life. Nice to meet you, Kuroka. I'm looking forward to learning what you can do. A sudden commotion erupted near the far side of the courtyard. A group of demons, their faces twisted in anger, surged forward, brandishing weapons that crackled with dark energy. At their center stood a tall, gaunt figure with a scar. Red face and eyes that burned like coals. It's him, Rias whispered, her voice tight. The one who tried to sabotage the summoning. The gaunt demon raised a hand, and a wave of black flame erupted, lashing toward Naruto and the others. Instinctively, Naruto dropped into a crouch, chakra swirling around his palms. He felt the Ninetales' power surge, a low growl resonating in his chest. Get back, he shouted, and with a swift motion, he thrust his hands forward. A massive Rasengan, larger than any he'd ever created, burst forth, colliding with the black flame. The impact sent a shockwave that rippled across the courtyard, scattering the attacking demons like leaves in a storm. The gaunt figure staggered, his flame sputtering out. He glared at Naruto, hatred burning in his eyes. You think you can stop us? The tribunal will fall, and Ophis will rise. He snarled. Before anyone could react, Kuroka stepped forward, her hand extended. A faint blue light gathered around her fingertips, and with a swift gesture, she created a small vortex that sucked the gaunt demon into it. He vanished with a scream, the vortex closing behind him. Silence fell again, broken only by the heavy breathing of those present. Rias turned to Naruto, her expression a mixture of relief and admiration. You handled that well, she said. But this is only the beginning. There are many who will try to use you, or stop you. The path ahead is fraught with danger, but you are not alone. Naruto looked around at his new companions, Rias, fierce and regal, Akeno, calm and holy, Kuroka, mysterious and powerful. He felt a surge of determination. He had faced countless foes in his life, but never one that threatened an entire realm. He clenched his fists, feeling the chakra pulse through his veins. Then let's get ready. I've got a lot to learn. And a god to stop. The sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the courtyard. The ancient tree's branches swayed gently, as if acknowledging the pact that had been forged. In the distance, a low rumble echoed, a reminder that Ophis was indeed stirring. Naruto took a step forward, his eyes scanning the horizon. The adventure was just beginning, and he was ready to write his own legend among the stars and shadows. Chapter 1 End. Chapter 2. Claws of the rival. The air in the Grimoire Mansion's training grounds was thick with the scent of sweat, ozone, and the faint metallic tang of blood. Naruto stood in the center of the arena, his orange jumpsuit replaced by a sleek, black outfit that Rias had insisted would fit in better with the underworld's aesthetic. Around him, the members of the Grimoire household watched with varying degrees of curiosity and skepticism. All right, Naruto-kun, Rias said, her arms crossed as she leaned against a stone pillar. You've had a few days to adjust. Let's see what you've got. Akeno, if you would. Akeno stepped forward, her silver hair shimmering in the morning light. She raised her hand, and a holy aura enveloped her, the air around her crackling with energy. I'll go easy on you, she said with a gentle smile, though Naruto could sense the power coiled within her. He grinned, the familiar thrill of combat sparking in his chest. Don't hold back on my account. They circled each other, Naruto's feet light on the stone, Akeno's movements graceful yet predatory. She struck first, a bolt of holy lightning shooting from her palm. Naruto dodged with a speed that made the onlookers gasp, his body blurring as he activated his shadow clone technique. 3 Narutos appeared, each one darting in different directions. Akeno's eyes narrowed, and she raised her hand again. This time, a barrier of light erupted around her, deflecting the kunai one of the clones through. Not bad, she murmured, her voice steady. But you're not the only one with tricks. Naruto dispersed the clones and focused his chakra. He formed a Rasengan in his right hand, the blue sphere pulsing with energy. Let's see how you handle this. He lunged forward, the Rasengan leading the way. Akeno met him head-on, her own hands glowing with a golden light. The two forces collided, creating an explosion of energy that sent shockwaves through the arena. Naruto was knocked back, but he rolled with the impact, coming to his feet with a grin. Impressive, Rias said, her voice tinged with approval. But remember, Naruto, this is just the beginning. You'll need more than raw power to survive here. Before Naruto could respond, a loud commotion erupted from the edge of the training grounds. The Grimoire servants SC, uttered as a group of figures clad in dark, ornate armor stormed in. At their head was a man with sharp features, his eyes cold and calculating. Rias Grimoire, the man said, his voice dripping with disdain. We've come to collect what's ours. Rias's expression darkened. Sarah Citri, what do you want? Sarah smirked, his gaze falling on Naruto. The shinobi, we heard you summoned him. The Citri family has a claim to his power. Hand him over, and we'll leave peacefully. Naruto stepped forward, his hands balled into fists. I'm not anyone's property. If you want me, you'll have to go through me. Sarah laughed, a harsh, grating sound. Brave words. But you're out of your depth here, boy. My family specializes in abyssal flames. You won't last long. Rias placed a hand on Naruto's shoulder, her grip firm. Let me handle this. Akeno, Kuroka, stand ready. Akeno nodded, her holy aura intensifying, while Kuroka appeared from the shadows, her eyes glinting with a dangerous light. Naruto hesitated but stepped back, trusting Rias's judgment. Sarah raised his hand, and the ground beneath them trembled. Dark flames erupted from the earth, forming a circle around the Grimoire group. You're surrounded, he sneered. Surrender now, and we might show mercy. Rias's eyes flashed with anger, but before she could respond, Naruto stepped forward again. I said I'm not anyone's property. And I'm not letting you push us around. He focused his chakra, drawing on the Nine Tails power. A golden aura enveloped him, and his eyes took on a fierce, fox-like glow. Let's see how you handle a Jinchuriki. With a roar, Naruto charged at the nearest Citri soldier, his speed blinding. He punched through the abyssal flames as if they were nothing, sending the soldier flying with a single blow. The others hesitated, their confidence wavering. Sarah's smirk faltered. Impossible. How can a human wield such power? Naruto didn't give him time to think. He created a dozen shadow clones, each one launching a Rasengan at the Citri forces. The blue spheres exploded on impact, sending the soldiers scattering. Rias watched with a mix of pride and concern. Naruto, be careful, you're still learning to control that power. Naruto nodded, but his focus remained on the enemy. He turned to Sarah, who was now backed against a wall, his armor scorched and cracked. This is your last chance. Leave, or face the consequences. Sarah's eyes narrowed, and he raised his hands. A massive orb of abyssal flames formed in front of him, its darkness swallowing the light around it. Then you leave me no choice. Taste the power of the Citri family. He hurled the orb at Naruto, who met it head-on with a massive Rasengan. The two forces collided in a blinding explosion, the shockwave tearing through the training grounds. When the dust settled, Naruto stood firm, his aura still glowing, while Sarah lay on the ground, defeated. The remaining Citri soldiers hesitated, then turned and fled, their armor clattering as they ran. Rias approached Naruto, her expression a mix of admiration and relief. Well done, Naruto, she said, placing a hand on his shoulder. You've proven yourself today. Akeno stepped forward, her eyes soft. Your power is incredible, but remember, it's not just about strength. It's about control, and knowing when to use it. Naruto nodded, his breath steadying. I know, I'm still learning, but I won't let anyone use me or threaten the people I care about. Kuroka appeared beside him, her presence quiet but commanding. Your instincts are sharp, Naruto. But the underworld is a complex place. The Citri family won't give up easily. We must be prepared for their next move. Rias's gaze hardened. Kuroka's right. The Citri family has always been our rivals, but this is different. They're desperate, and desperation makes people dangerous. We need to uncover their motives. Naruto crossed his arms, his eyes narrowing. What do you mean? Why are they so interested in me? Akeno's expression turned grim. The Citri family has been experimenting with forbidden techniques, trying to merge demonic power with other sources of energy. They believe your chakra could be the key to unlocking a new level of strength. Kuroka added, and if they succeed, it could destabilize the balance of power in the underworld. We cannot allow that to happen. Rias placed a hand on Naruto's arm, her grip firm. We'll deal with the Citri family, but for now, we need to focus on your training. You've shown incredible potential, but there's still much to learn. The path ahead is dangerous, and we must be ready. Naruto nodded, determination burning in his eyes. I'm ready. I won't let you down. As they began to walk back to the mansion, Naruto couldn't shake the feeling that the Citri family was just the beginning. The underworld was a place of shadows and secrets, and he was only starting to scratch the surface. But with Rias, Akeno, and Kuroka by his side, he knew he could face whatever came next. The sun climbed higher in the sky, casting long shadows across the training grounds. Naruto glanced back at the arena, now silent and still, and felt a sense of purpose settle over him. He had a new home, new allies, and a new battle to fight, and he was ready. Chapter 2 End. Chapter 3. The human demon rift. The portal tore open above the village like a wound in the sky itself. Naruto felt it before he saw it, a sick, twisting pressure in his gut that had nothing to do with the Nine Tails. He was on the mansion's roof, finishing a late-night spar with Akeno, when the horizon lit up with a sickly violet light. The air filled with the smell of burning iron and wet earth. Rias was already moving. She vaulted the balustrade, crimson hair whipping behind her like a war banner. That's the border village, Kuo outskirts. The barrier just shattered. Naruto didn't ask questions. He dropped off the roof, landed in a crouch that cracked the marble tiles, and sprinted after her. Akeno and Kuroka flanked him without a word, 4 streaks of color cutting across the moonlit grounds. They reached the edge of the Grimoire territory in minutes. The portal hung 30 meters above the village square, a jagged ring of black fire vomiting beasts straight out of someone's nightmare. Things with too many joints, mouths where eyes should be, claws dripping molten shadow. Villagers screamed and ran, but the streets were narrow and the monsters were fast. Naruto skidded to a halt at the village gate. A little girl stood frozen in the middle of the road, clutching a stuffed fox, staring up at a creature the size of a horse as it lowered its lamprey mouth toward her. He moved before he thought. 1 second he was at the gate, the next he was between the girl and the monster. Palm already glowing with a spinning sphere of compressed chakra. Get away from her. The Rasengan punched straight through the beast's face. It didn't even have time to scream, just burst into black ash that rained down like dirty snow. Naruto scooped the girl up with his free arm and flash-stepped her to the nearest cluster of fleeing adults. Take her and keep running. Don't stop until you're past the river. The mother sobbed something that might have been thanks, but Naruto was already gone, leaping back into the fight. Rias landed beside him, wings of crimson destruction unfurling from her back. We have orders from the council, she said, voice tight. Close the portal at all costs. Even if it means letting the village burn. Naruto's jaw clenched. Like hell. He looked up. More beasts poured through every second. If the portal stayed open another 5 minutes, there wouldn't be a village left to save. Akeno's lightning cracked across the sky, vaporizing 3 monsters at once. The tear is anchored by corrupted devil crest stones, she called. They're embedded in the old shrine on the hill. Destroy them and the portal collapses. Kuroka appeared in a swirl of black mist beside Naruto. Problem. The shrine is on the human side of the border. If we cross in force, the Grigori and the church will declare it an act of war. Devils aren't allowed to set foot there without invitation. Naruto stared at the screaming village, then at the portal vomiting death. He felt the 9 tails stir, hot and angry. Then I'm not going as a devil, he said. I'm going as me. He didn't wait for permission. Sage mode flared to life. Golden eyes, orange markings, the air around him humming with natural energy. He kicked off the ground so hard the cobblestones shattered beneath his feet. In 3 bounds he cleared the border wall and landed in the shrine courtyard. The crest stones, 4 of them, were buried in the torii pillars, pulsing like infected hearts. Around them swarmed a dozen high-class stray devils. Their auras thick with madness. The first one lunged. Naruto caught it by the face and slammed it into the ground hard enough to crater the stone. He didn't stop moving. Fists, elbows, knees, every strike precise, brutal, efficient. Bodies flew. Bones snapped. One stray tried to blind him with a spear of darkness. Naruto leaned into it, let it graze his cheek, and Reppa id the favor with a Rasengan that erased the devil from the waist up. Blood, his own and theirs, splattered across the shrine steps. He tasted copper and kept moving. At the final pillar, the largest stray waited. A woman once, maybe. Now a twisted thing of blades and hunger. She smiled with too many teeth. You'll never close it in time, little fox, she crooned. The village is already lost. Join us. Become. Naruto's fist cut her sentence in half. Literally. The upper half of her body spun away into the night. He placed his palm against the last crest stone. Chakra surged. Pure, violent, uncontainable. The stone cracked, then exploded. One by one the other three followed, chain reacting from the surge he fed them. High above, the portal screamed. A sound like tearing metal and dying stars. It folded in on itself, shrinking, until it snapped shut with a thunderclap that knocked everyone in the village flat. Silence. Then the crying started, and the cheering. Naruto stood in the ruined shrine, chest heaving. Blood dripping from his knuckles. The moon painted everything silver and red. Rias landed softly behind him. She didn't say anything about borders or politics. She just looked at the village, roofs on fire, streets littered with ash and bodies, and then at him. You saved them, she said quietly. All of them. Naruto wiped his face with the back of his hand, smearing blood across his cheek. Not all. Akeno walked up, holy lightning still flickering between her fingers. Her usual smile was gone. The council is going to be furious. You just openly defied a direct order on recorded territory. Let them be furious, Naruto answered. His voice was hoarse. I'm not leaving kids to die because some old bastards are scared of paperwork. Kuroka stepped out of a rift beside them, holding something in her gloved hand, a jagged shard of black stone etched with the same sigil Naruto had seen on the summoning slab back in the mansion. This was embedded in the deepest crest, she said. Ophus's mark. Someone wanted this portal to open, and they wanted it to be traced back to the Grimoire. Rias's eyes narrowed. A declaration of war. No, Naruto said, taking the shard from Kuroka. He crushed it in his fist, letting the dust spill between his fingers. A declaration that someone's playing a bigger game. And they just made it personal. He looked back at the village. A little boy, the brother of the girl with the fox doll, was waving at him from the arms of a firefighter, both of them covered in soot but alive. Naruto lifted a hand in return. Rias watched the exchange. Something shifted in her expression. Something soft and fierce at the same time. Come on, she said finally. We've got wounded to carry and a council to piss off. Naruto laughed once, short and tired, but real. Lead the way, Crimson Princess. As they walked back through the smoke and the cheers, the weight of what he'd just done settled on his shoulders. He had drawn a line tonight. Not between human and devil. Between what he would and would not allow. And whatever was coming next. Cetri schemes, celestial politics, ancient serpents waking up in the dark, would have to cross that line to get to the people he'd decided were his. Let them try. Chapter 3 End. Chapter 4. Echoes of the past rain battered the stained glass windows of the Grimoire mansion, a relentless drum. Ming that matched the storm brewing in the sky. Inside, the air was heavy, not just with humidity, but with a silence that felt brittle, liable to snap at the slightest touch. Naruto sat in the common room, nursing a cup of tea Rias had poured him an hour ago. It was cold now. Across the room, Akeno Himehime stood by the window, staring out at the deluge. She hadn't moved in 40 minutes. Her usual playful demeanor, the mask of the sultry older sister she wore so effortlessly, had dissolved. In its place was something rigid and cold. Earlier that evening, a single black feather had drifted through an open window. Landing on her shoulder, she had touched it, paled, and retreated into this silence. Naruto stood up. The scrape of his chair against the floor was loud in the quiet room. Rias W. As in a council meeting with Sears X via Magic Circle, and Kuroka was out scouting. It was just them. He walked over to her, stopping a few feet away. He didn't ask what was wrong, he could sense it. Sage mode wasn't active, but his empathy, sharpened by years of housing Kurama's turbulent emotions, picked up the chaotic storm swirling inside her. Fear, shame, and a deep, freezing hatred. You're going to leave, aren't you? Naruto said softly. Akeno's shoulders stiffened. She didn't turn around. The rain is beautiful, isn't it, Naruto-kun? It washes everything away. Cut the crap, Akeno. She flinched. Slowly, she turned to face him. Her smile was there, but it didn't reach her eyes. Those violet orbs were dull, like glass covered in dust. My, you're forceful tonight. Is that a new side of you? I saw the feather, Naruto said, ignoring her deflection. And I saw your face. You're planning to slip out once I go to sleep. You're going to fight someone. Akeno's smile faltered, then vanished. She sighed, a sound that seemed to carry the weight of years. It's an old acquaintance. Someone from a life I left behind long ago. It has nothing to do with the Grimoire, and nothing to do with you. If they're threatening you, it has everything to do with me. Naruto stepped closer, his blue eyes locking onto hers. We're teammates, friends. You backed me up against the sea tree. You stood with me at the village. You think I'm letting you walk into a trap alone. It's not a trap, Naruto, she whispered, her voice trembling. It's an execution. He's coming to finish what he started 10 years ago. Who? Lucille. A fallen angel. One of the cadres who enjoyed watching my mother die. The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. Naruto's expression didn't change, but his chakra flared, a sudden, heavy pressure that made the window panes rattle. Grab your coat, he said. Akeno blinked, startled by the absolute command in his tone. Naruto, you don't understand. This involves my heritage. If you come, you'll see things, parts of me, that are ugly. You won't want to look at me afterwards. Naruto reached out and took her hand. His grip was warm, calloused, and unyielding. I've got a demon fox living in my gut who tried to kill me for 16 years, Naruto said dryly. I've seen ugly. I've been the ugly. Now, are we walking, or are we flying? They foo. Nd Lucille in the ruins of an old cathedral on the outskirts of the town, a place abandoned since the last Great War. The roof had collapsed decades ago, leaving the nave open to the angry gray sky. Rain poured in, pooling on the cracked mosaic floor. He was waiting for them on the altar. Lucille was beautiful in the way a knife was beautiful. Tall, with pale skin and long, jagged black hair. 3 pairs of black wings stretched from his back, the feathers slick with rain. He wore light armor made of a silvery metal that seemed to repel the gloom. I expected you to come alone, Akeno, Lucille called out. His voice echoing off the wet stone walls. Bringing a pet. How? Domestic. Akeno stepped forward, her hand slipping from Naruto's. Her posture changed. She straightened, her chin lifting, ummaning the arrogance of the Grimoire Queen. But Naruto saw the tremor in her fingers. Lucille, she said, her voice icy. I thought the Grimoire had leashed its dogs. What are you doing this far from the deeper territories? The fallen angel laughed, hopping down from the altar. His boots splashed in a puddle. The Grimoire, I don't answer to Azazel anymore. I answer to a higher calling. A new order. He hefted a spear in his right hand. It wasn't a spear of light, but a physical weapon, a long, twisted lance made of black iron, pulsing with a faint, violet rhythm. Naruto's eyes narrowed. He recognized that pulse. It felt like the summoning stone. Like the portal. Ophis, you're here for me? Akeno asked, yellow lightning beginning to crackle around her fingertips. I'm here to clean up a stain, Lucille sneered. You're an abomination, Himahima. Half devil, half fallen. A mongrel. You possess the blood of the holy lightning, yet you roll in the mud with devils. It's offensive, he blurred. There was no other word for it. 1 second he was 10 meters away, the next he was in front of Akeno, the black spear thrusting toward her heart. Akeno gasped, throwing up a barrier of demonic magic. The spear shattered it like glass. Clang. Naruto was there. He had caught the spear shaft in his hand, stopping the tip inches from Akeno's chest. His skin was hardening, the faint orange pigmentation of sage mode appearing around his eyes. You talk too much, Naruto growled. Lucille's eyes widened slightly. Oh, The summon. I heard the Grimoire acquired a brute. He twisted the spear, releasing a shockwave of violet energy. Naruto was blasted backward, skidding across the wet floor. He dug his heels in, carving gouges into the stone, and flipped back to his feet. Akeno! Naruto shouted. Flank him. Akeno hesitated. She was staring at Lucille's wings, the black wings of a fallen. Her eyes were wide, lost in a memory. What's the matter? Lucille taunted, ignoring Naruto to lunge at her again. Where are your wings, mongrel? Or are you too ashamed to show them? Do you hate your father that much? He struck her with the back of the spear, a heavy blow that sent her sprawling into a pile of rubble. Akeno coughed, blood trickling from her lip. She scrambled back, firing bolts of yellow magic, but Lucille batted them away with his wings. Weak, Lucille hissed. You reject your own nature. You use only the devil's power, ignoring the thunder in your blood. That is why you will die here. He raised the spear for a killing blow. The violet light intensified, humming with a sound that made Naruto's teeth ache. Naruto didn't run. He didn't dodge. He disappeared. Yellow flash. He slammed into Lucille from the side, a Rasengan grinding into the fallen angel's ribs. Lucille roared, crashing through a stone pillar and tumbling into the shadows of the nave. Naruto landed in front of Akeno, breathing hard. The rain plastered his hair to his forehead. He didn't look at the enemy, he looked down at her. Get up, he said. Not a command, but a plea. I can't, Akeno choked out, clutching her arm. He's right, I'm weak. I won't use his power. Naruto knelt, grabbing her shoulders and shaking her once. Whose? Your dad's. If I use the holy lightning, I'm just like him. I'm a fallen. Tears mixed with the rain on her face. I'm filthy, Naruto. From the shadows, Lucille rose, wiping black blood from his mouth. The violet light on his spear began to glow brighter, illuminating the madness in his eyes. Touching. Die together. Then, Lucille raised the spear. The air above them began to warp. Hundreds of spears of light formed, but they were tainted, laced with the Ophis energy. Naruto looked at the incoming death, then back at Akeno. His eyes were fierce, burning with a clarity that cut through her panic. Listen to me, he shouted over the roar of the storm. I'm a Jinchuriki. I carry the monster that destroyed my home inside my belly. Everyone looked at me and saw a demon. They saw filth. Akeno stared at him, her breath hitching. But this power. Naruto tapped his stomach, then pointed at her heart. It doesn't belong to the fox. And yours doesn't belong to your dad. It's yours, Akeno. It's whatever you decide it is. If you use it to protect your friends, then it's holy. If you use it to save people, it's light. The spears of light rained down. Naruto spun, channeling chakra, tailed beast bomb. Mini. He fired a dense sphere of chakra upward, intercepting the main volley. Explosions rocked the cathedral, debris raining down around them. But some spears got through. One grazed Naruto's shoulder, another pierced his thigh. He grunted, dropping to one knee, but he didn't stop shielding her. Naruto! Akeno screamed. Use it! Naruto roared, blood leaking from his leg. Don't let him decide who you are. You are Akeno Himehime. You are the queen of the Grimoire. Show him. Something inside Akeno snapped, or perhaps, it finally healed. She looked at Naruto, bleeding, fighting, refusing to give an inch for her sake. He didn't care about her wings. He didn't care about her blood. He saw her. A low hum began in her chest. It wasn't the jagged crackle of devil magic. It was deep, resonant, and pure. She stood up. From her back, a single devil wing unfurled on the left. And on the right, a black, feathered wing of a fallen angel snapped open. Shedding rain and light, Lucille froze. So, you finally reveal your shame. Akeno threw her head back, her eyes glowing with a mix of violet and gold. Shame. She laughed, but this time, it wasn't a mask. It was the sound of thunder. No, this is my power. She raised her hand. Holy lightning. The sky above the cathedral split open. A bolt of lightning, thick as a tree trunk and glowing a brilliant, purifying gold, slammed down onto the altar. Lucille shrieked as the holy energy scorched his armor. He tried to block with the Ophis spear, but the purity of Akeno's Ada CK clashed violently with the corrupted artifact. Naruto-kun, Akeno shouted, her voice commanding. Now, Naruto grinned through the pain. He forced himself up, ignoring the wound in his leg. You got it. He channeled the last of his immediate reserves. 2 clones appeared, throwing him forward. He moved through the blinding light of Akeno's storm, a shadow in the brilliance. Lucille was blinded, reeling from the holy shock. He didn't see the fist until it was buried in his gut. Uzumaki. Barrage. Naruto kicked him into the air. Akeno tracked the arc. She snapped her fingers. Thunder Dragon. A dragon made of pure golden lightning erupted from her hand, jaws clamping around Lucille in midair. It drove him down, slamming him into the stone floor with earth-shattering force. The impact blew out the remaining walls of the cathedral. Silence returned, save for the hiss of steam and the receding rumble of thunder. Naruto limped over to the crater. Lucille lay unconscious, his armor melted, his black wings singed. The Ophis spear lay beside him, broken in two. The violet light within it flickered and died. Naruto kicked the weapon away, then turned to Akeno. She stood amidst the rubble, both wings, one bat-like, one feathered, still extended. She looked at them, then at him, waiting for the rejection. Waiting for the disgust. Naruto walked up to her. He reached out and touched the black feathers of the fallen wing. Soft, he mumbled. Akeno let out a breath she felt like she'd been holding for 10 years. Her legs gave out. Naruto caught her. He sat down on a dry patch of stone, pulling her into his lap. She buried her face in his chest, sobbing. Not the polite, silent tears of a lady, but the raw, ugly sobbing of someone finally letting go of a lifetime of pain. He just held her, resting his chin on her head, stroking her hair. I hated myself, she mumbled into his shirt. I hated that I was half him. I know, Naruto said quietly. But you're half your mother, too. And you're all you. You were amazing, Akeno. She pulled back slightly, looking up at him. Her eyes were red, swollen, and incredibly vulnerable. You really don't mind. Naruto smiled, his signature fox-like grin. I think the wings are cool. Makes you look like a boss. Akeno huffed a wet laugh. She leaned up, hesitating for a second, and then pressed her lips to his cheek. It was soft, lingering, and full of a gratitude that bordered on devotion. Thank you, Naruto, she whispered against his skin. For saving me, in every way. Naruto blushed, scratching his cheek. Yeah, well, that's what we do. He looked over at the broken spear. The humor faded from his face. He reached out and picked up the hilt. Etched into the black iron, right where the break had occurred, was the rune. The same one from the summoning stone. The same one from the village. Akeno, he said seriously. Look. She wiped her eyes and focused on the object. Her expression hardened. Another one. Ophis's signature. Lucille said he answered to a new order, Naruto recalled. He wasn't just acting on a grudge. Someone sent him here. Someone gave him that weapon to test us. Or to test you. Akeno shivered, withdrawing her wings. The magical energy dissipated, but the new strength in her posture remained. The Celestial Tribunal, or whatever faction is working with them. They're escalating. They want to see if we can handle the old gods. Naruto said, crushing the rune fragment in his hand. They want to see if we break. He stood up, helping Akeno to her feet. He winced as he put weight on his injured leg, and Akeno immediately slipped her arm under his, supporting him. Lean on me, she said softly. I'm fine, he protested weakly. Lean on me, Naruto, she repeated, her voice firm, echoing the strength he had just helped her find. He relaxed, letting her take his weight. Okay. They walked out of the ruins together, leaving the unconscious fallen angel for the Grimoire cleanup crew. The rain had stopped. The clouds were breaking apart, revealing a vast, star-filled sky. Naruto-kun, yeah, when we get back, would you like to have that tea? Properly this time, I'd like that. As they walked into the night, the bond between them hummed, stronger than chakra, deeper than blood. Akeno Himehime had faced her ghosts, and for the first time in her life, she didn't feel alone in the dark. But high above, unseen by both, a golden ripple distorted the stars. The eyes of the tribunal were watching. And the test was far from over. Chapter 4 End. Chapter 5, Heaven's Fury. The morning after the cathedral's ruin, the Grimoire mansion was a place of hushed urgency. Sunlight filtered through stained glass, painting the marble floor with shards of color. Naruto lay on a low couch. His orange jumpsuit swapped for a black, sleeveless shirt that showed the faint orange markings of Sage Mode still faintly glowing around his eyes. His leg was bandaged, a dark stain of blood seeping through the white gauze. Akeno moved quietly around him, a bowl of steaming broth in her hands. She set it down on a small table beside the couch and brushed a stray strand of silver hair from her face. "Drink," she said, voice soft but firm. "You lost a lot of blood. The wound on your thigh is deep, but it'll heal if you rest." Naruto winced as he tried to sit up, the pain sharp but manageable. "Thanks, Akeno. I didn't expect that to happen." She smiled, a small, genuine curve that reached her violet eyes. "You never do, Naruto-kun. You always jump in headfirst." A sudden, sharp crack echoed through the hall. The massive doors at the far end swung open, and a figure stepped through, a tall, imposing man with crimson hair that seemed to drink the light. Sears X Lucifer, the Devil King and Rias's older brother, stood there. His presence commanding the room without a word. "Rias," he said, his voice a low rumble that seemed to vibrate the very air. "We have a problem." Rias Grimori, already dressed in a sleek black dress that hinted at her royal lineage, turned from the council table where she'd been poring over ancient texts. Her violet eyes narrowed as she took in Searsex's expression. "What is it?" she asked, her tone steady but edged with concern. Searsex raised a hand, and a swirling vortex of dark energy formed above his palm. From it emerged a parchment, sealed with a golden sigil that pulsed faintly. "This arrived an hour ago," he said, handing the parchment to Rias. "From the Celestial Tribunal." Rias broke the seal with a swift motion. The parchment unfurled, revealing elegant script written in a language that seemed to shift as you tried to read it. "To the Grimori House, by decree of the Celestial Tribunal, you are hereby ordered to surrender the entity known as Naruto Uzumaki, holder of the Ninetails Chakra, within 3 days of receipt of this notice. Failure to comply will result in immediate divine intervention, up to and including a full-scale angelic invasion. Signed, Archangel Michael, Commander of the Heavenly Host. Countersigned, Valkyrie, Leader of the Celestial Tribunal." Rias's lips tightened. 3 days. They're serious. Naruto sat up fully now, the broth forgotten. "What does that mean?" "Divine intervention." Searsex's eyes flicked to Naruto, a hint of respect in them. "It means they'll send an army of seraphim. They'll try to take you by force. And they won't stop until they have your chakra." Akeno set the bowl down with a soft clink. "They think they can just waltz in and take what we've built." Rias turned to the council table, where several advisors, demons with scarred faces and eyes that glowed with ancient power, were already murmuring. "We need a plan. We can't just sit here and wait for them to knock." Naruto stood, testing his weight on his injured leg. It held, though a sharp sting ran up his thigh. "What can we do? I'm not going to just hand myself over." Searsex crossed his arms, the dark aura around him flaring slightly. "We have a few options. We can fight, we can flee, or we can negotiate. But the tribunal is not known for mercy." Rias looked at Naruto, her gaze softening. "We'll need allies. He fallen angels. Those exiled from heaven, might be willing to help if we offer them something they want." Naruto's eyebrows rose. "Fallen angels? Like Sarah?" Akeno's eyes widened. "You know of them?" Naruto nodded. "I met Sarah briefly when I was looking for a way to stop the Ophis thing. She seemed reasonable." Searsex smirked. "Reasonable is a relative term when it comes to angels. But if anyone can broker a deal, it's you, Naruto. Your reputation precedes you." Rias stepped forward, placing a hand on Naruto's shoulder. "We'll need to train, if we're going to stand a chance against an army of seraphim. We need to be ready. I want you to teach us that shield technique you used against the Cetri." Naruto looked at the assembled demons, Rias, Akeno, Kuroka, who had just materialized from a swirl of black mist, and a few senior household members. He felt the familiar surge of confidence that always rose when he faced a new challenge. "All right," he said, voice steady. "Let's start with the basics. I'll show you how to channel your own energy into a chakra shield. It's not as hard as it sounds. Just think of it like a Rasengan, but spread out like a bubble." He raised his hand, and a faint orange glow began to emanate from his palm. The air around him seemed to thicken, a subtle hum filling the room. First, you need to feel the natural energy around you, Naruto explained, his tone conversational. As if he were teaching a friend rather than a room full of demons. Close your eyes. Breathe in. Feel the flow of the underworld's power, the same way I feel the Forest's life force when I go into sage mode. Rias closed her eyes, her brow furrowing as she concentrated. A faint crimson aura flickered around her fingertips. Good, Naruto said, smiling. Now, imagine that aura expanding outward, forming a thin membrane around your body. It should be strong enough to deflect a single attack, but flexible enough to let you move. Akeno followed, her silver high, shimmering as a golden light gathered at her palms. Like this? She asked, a hint of mischief in her voice. Naruto chuckled. Exactly. Now, let's test it. He stepped back, forming a Rasengan in his right hand. I'll throw this at you. Try to block it with the shield. Rias raised her hands, the crimson aura flaring into a dome that shimmered like liquid ruby. Naruto launched the Rasengan, a blue vortex of spinning chakra. It collided with Rias's shield, sending a ripple of light across the room. The Rasengan bounced off, dissipating into a spray of sparks. Nice, Naruto exclaimed. You did it. That's the basics. Now, let's make it bigger. He turned to Kuroka, who stood with her arms crossed, a faint blue glow around her fingertips. Your turn, Kuroka. You have a different kind of energy, space-time. See if you can weave that into the shield. Kuroka raised an eyebrow, a small smile playing on her lips. Very well. She extended her hands, and a thin, translucent veil of space rippled outward, intersecting with the chakra shield. The two energies merged, creating a shimmering barrier that seemed to bend light. Whoa, Naruto breathed. That's actually pretty cool. Akeno laughed, the sound bright and warm. You're a natural teacher, Naruto-kun. Rias opened her eyes, a fierce light in them. If we can all do this, we might have a chance. Sirzex, who had been watching from the doorway, nodded. Good, but we need more than shields. We need a plan to get the fallen angels on our side. Naruto looked at the massive doors that led out onto the mansion's courtyard. Kuroka, can you open a portal to the abyssal rift? That's where the fallen angels gather, right? Kuroka inclined her head. I can. It will be unstable, but I can hold it long enough for us to step through. Then let's go, Naruto said, determination burning in his chest. We'll talk to Sarah. If we can get her and her people to fight with us, the tribunal will have a harder time. Rias placed a hand on his arm, her grip firm. Be careful, Naruto. The rift is dangerous. Not all of the fallen are friendly. Naruto grinned, his signature fox-like smile returning. I've faced worse. Let's do this. The group moved toward the courtyard, the mansion's stone walls echoing with their footsteps. As they passed, a few demons bowed their heads in respect, sensing the gravity of the moment. Kuroka raised her hands, and a swirling vortex of black mist coalesced before them. The portal crackled, a thin line of violet light cutting through the air. Step through when I say, Kuroka instructed, her voice calm but authoritative. Naruto stepped forward first, his hand resting on the hilt of his concealed kunai. After you, he said to Rias, gesturing for her to go ahead. Rias gave a small, confident nod and stepped into the portal. A flash of crimson light enveloped her, and she vanished. Akeno followed, her wings, one devil, one fallen, fluttering slightly as she passed through. The portal seemed to react to her dual nature, the light flickering between gold and black. Kuroka went next, her form dissolving into the mist before reappearing on the other side. Finally, Naruto stepped through, the portal's edge tingling against his skin. He felt a brief sensation of disorientation, then the world snapped back into focus. They emerged in a vast, barren plain lit by a sickly violet sky. The ground was cracked, and in the distance, silhouettes of towering ruins rose like broken teeth. A group of figures stood at the edge of the plain, tall, winged beings with an aura of both light and darkness. At their center was a woman with long, flowing black hair and eyes that seemed to hold the weight of centuries. She wore a tattered white robe that fluttered despite the lack of wind, and a pair of scarred, black wings stretched behind her. Sarah, Naruto called, recognition lighting his voice. The woman turned, a faint smile touching her lips. Naruto Uzumaki, I heard you were causing trouble again. Naruto stepped forward, his hands open. I'm here to ask for your help. The Celestial Tribunal is planning an invasion. They want my chakra, and they'll stop at nothing to get it. We need allies. Sarah's eyes flicked to the others, Rias, Akeno, Kuroka, then back to Naruto. You know why we fell, don't you? We were cast out for questioning the hierarchy. We don't trust the tribunal any more than you do. Naruto's gaze was steady. I know, but if we stand together, we might have a chance to stop them from using Ophus's power for their own ends. I'm not asking you to fight for me, I'm asking you to fight for the balance. A tense silence stretched. Finally, Sarah let out a soft laugh, the sound echoing across the plain. You have always been bold, Naruto. Very well, we will listen. She gestured, and the other fallen angels stepped forward, their wings unfurling in a display of dark and light. The air crackled with anticipation. Let's talk, Sarah said, her voice carrying both authority and a hint of curiosity. But know this, if you betray us, the rift will be the least of your worries. Naruto nodded, a grin spreading across his face. Deal. The negotiation continued for hours, with Sarah probing Naruto about his past, his goals, and the nature of the Ophus threat. Naruto answered with his characteristic blend of humor, earnestness, and fierce conviction, gradually winning the fallen angel's trust. By the end of the discussion, a tentative pact was formed. The fallen angels would fight alongside the Grimoire household against the tribunal's invasion, provided Naruto would share a portion of his chakra to strengthen their dark flame weapons. As the sun, if it could be called that in this violet-lit realm, began to set, the portal back to the Grimoire mansion flickered to life. Kuroka, ever the master of space-time, steadied it, allowing the group to return. Back in the courtyard, the sky above the mansion began to crack, a deep, resonant fissure that sent a shiver through every demon present. A low, ominous rumble rolled across the land, and a brilliant white light spilled from the heavens, heralding the arrival of the angelic host. The stage was set. The battle for the UNDER world, and perhaps for all realms, was about to begin. Chapter 6. The Tribunal's Gambit. The air still hummed with the aftershocks of celestial power. Dawn broke over a ravaged landscape. The Grimoire mansion, while standing, bore the scars of the angelic assault. Scorched walls, shattered windows, and a lingering scent of ozone. Smoke curled from distant craters where Michael's divine light had struck. Exhaustion clung to Naruto like a second skin, but adrenaline still surged, a bitter taste in his mouth. He stood on a crumbling balcony with Rias, Akeno, and Kuroka. Below them, members of the household moved with grim determination, assessing damage, tending to the injured, and reinforcing what defenses remained. The fallen angels, led by Sarah, were already assisting, their dark wings. A stark contrast to the white scars on the land. They didn't take you, Rias said, her voice hoarse, her eyes fixed on the horizon where the last of the angelic host had vanished. But they left a message. Akeno, her own exhaustion evident in the faint trembling of her hands, nodded. A message etched in fire and fury. They showed us exactly what they're capable of. Kuroka, ever the silent observer, pointed a slender finger toward a faint, shimmering distortion in the distant sky. And it's not over. The veil is thinning. Ophus stirs, fueled by the residual energy of the clash. Naruto clenched his fists, the chakra within him thrumming with a restless energy. He'd barely held his own against Michael, a being whose power felt as vast and ancient as the world itself. The thought of facing a fully awakened Ophus made even the nine tails stir uneasily within him. They want me to give up, Naruto muttered, thinking back to Michael's stark words. They want my chakra to use against Ophus. But they don't want to save the world, they want to control it. As if summoned by his words, the air around them shimmered. Not a portal, not a materialization, but a projection, a being of pure, cold light. Valkyrie. Her form was ethereal, yet her presence was crushing. Her eyes, like chips of ancient ice, bore into Naruto. You stood against my archangel, Naruto Uzumaki, Valkyrie's voice echoed, not from her projected form, but from everywhere at once, a chilling symphony in his mind. You displayed remarkable, if foolish, resolve. This is why I offer you one final chance. Naruto met her gaze, unflinching. What do you want? Peace, she stated, her words devoid of warmth. Order, the natural progression of the cosmos. Ophis is an anomaly, a chaotic force that threatens all creation. We, the Celestial Tribunal, have observed, we have weighed the options, and we have determined the optimal path. A vision flickered in Naruto's mind, a world consumed by darkness, then reshaped, cold and sterile, by an unseen hand. He recoiled instinctively. Your chakra, Valkyrie continued, oblivious to his reaction, or perhaps uncaring, is unique. It possesses the inherent capacity to bridge worlds, to bind and to empower. Combined with the fragments of Ophis's power we have already harvested, it can become the key. A weapon, a leash to control the serpent, to contain its power, and thus to ensure the stability of the realms for eternity. A leash, Naruto scoffed. You mean a cage. For me, for Ophis, for anyone who doesn't fit into your perfect little plan. A necessary cage, Shinobi, Valkyrie corrected, her voice hardening. The alternative is chaos, a world where gods run rampant, where the balance crumbles, and all life is extinguished. Your idealism is a luxury we cannot afford. Hand over your power, allow us to forge this weapon, and the conflict ends. Refuse, and we will take it by force. And then, we will unleash Ophis upon this realm to prove our necessity. Rias stepped forward, her regal bearing undimmed by the battle. You would destroy the underworld to prove a point. A calculated loss, Grimori, Valkyrie's projection sharpened, her gaze flicking to Rias. The needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few. And if your realm must become a demonstration of chaos to justify our order, then so be it. Naruto felt Kurama stir, a deep growl rumbling in his gut. This wasn't about saving the world, it was about power, control, and fear. It was the same twisted logic he'd fought against his entire life. No, Naruto said, his voice quiet but firm, cutting through the chilling silence. I won't let you do it. Not to Ophis, not to me, and not to anyone else. You don't get to decide who lives and who dies, or how they live, just because you're scared. Valkyrie's projected form flickered, a faint crack appearing in her serene facade. Your defiance will be your undoing, Shinobi. You cling to a childish notion of coexistence in a universe that demands order. Very well, let the chaos begin. Let this realm be a testament to your folly. Her form dissolved, leaving behind only the lingering scent of ozone and a palpable sense of dread. Well, Akeno said, breaking the heavy silence. That went well. Her attempt at humor fell flat. Rias turned to Naruto, her hand instinctively reaching for his, her grip firm and reassuring. She means it. She'll send everything she has. Not just angels, but anyone she can manipulate. Kuroka's eyes scanned the battered mansion. The Citri family has many disgruntled members. And there are always those in the lower ranks of demons who crave power above all else. Just as Kuroka finished speaking, a tremor shook the ground. Not the distant rumble of Ophis, but a localized shockwave. Sirens wailed ACR. Os the Grimori territory, the rarely used alarm for internal breaches. They're here, Rias stated, her voice tight with grim resolve. She wasn't lying. A wave of distorted figures surged from the southern gate. Figures Naruto recognized with a chilling familiarity. More of the Ophidian beasts from the border village, but larger, more aggressive, their bodies pulsating with the sickly violet light of Ophis's power. Alongside them charged demonic rebels, their eyes red with battle lust, their weapons crude but deadly. Demonic forces to the south gate. Rias commanded, her voice cutting through the panic. Immediately falling into her role as leader. Fallen angel contingent, we need you to intercept the eastern flank. It looks like more celestial infiltrators. Naruto, Akeno, Kuroka, with me to the main hall. We have to secure the core of the mansion. Naruto nodded, his hand already on the hilt of a kunai. These Ophidian beasts, they're unstable. Valkyrie's trying to overwhelm us with the very chaos she claims to control. The fighting erupted simultaneously across multiple fronts. Explosions rocked the mansion, the air filled with the roar of demons, the shriek of Ophidian creatures, and the searing crackle of celestial energy. Inside the grand hall, demonic rebels, ragtag, but numerous, clashed with the Grimori household's remaining guards. Rias, leading from the front, unleashed waves of destruction. her power searing through the enemy ranks. Akeno's hybrid lightning danced, striking down both demons and angelic infiltrators who tried to slip past the defenses. Kuroka was a blur of shadows and spatial warps, redirecting attacks, creating momentary diversions, and occasionally, with a flick of her wrist, sending a stray enemy into a distant dimension. Naruto moved like a whirlwind. He was everywhere at once, his sage mode enhancing his perceptions, allowing him to anticipate and counter attacks before they landed. A massive Ophidian brute lunged at a young demon guard. Naruto intercepted. A Rasengan blooming in his hand, shattering the creature's corrupted form into violet dust. He spun, intercepting a celestial arrow that was aimed at Rias's back, sending a SWI. Fort kick to the angelic infiltrator's chest. They're coordinated. Rias shouted over the din, her crimson power flaring. The Ophidian creatures are targeting the main defensive barriers. They want to collapse the mansion from within. Naruto realized the terrifying logic behind Valkyrie's strategy. It wasn't about brute force alone anymore. It was about creating so much chaos, so much destruction, that they would be forced to relinquish him, or be destroyed. This was a war of attrition, designed to break their will. His eyes, golden with sage mode, scanned the frenetic battlefield. We need to stop them from converging. Rias, spread your destruction to thin their numbers. Akeno, focus your lightning on those larger Ophidian beasts. He created a dozen shadow clones. Clones, secure the perimeter. No enemy gets past the inner courtyard. The clones fanned out, engaging the scattered remnants of the invasion force. Naruto himself surged forward, his speed blurring as he weaved through the chaotic melee. He focused on the Ophidian beasts, their corrupted forms a direct insult to the delicate balance he sought to protect. Each Rasengan, each punch, each kick, was imbued with the fierce conviction that these creatures, and the power that animated them, could not be allowed to spread. Suddenly, a massive tremor shook the entire mansion. Dust rained from the ornate ceiling. A section of the main wall, already weakened by the earlier angelic assault, began to crack. The archives, a demon shouted, pointing to a door that led to the mansion's deepest, oldest section. It's collapsing. If they get through there, they'll be at the foundation. Naruto's eyes narrowed. The archives, a place where ancient knowledge, hidden secrets, and forgotten power often lay buried. It was a classic move. While the main force created a diversion, the real threat would be digging at their roots. Kuroka, Naruto yelled, his voice cutting through the explosions. Can you get me to the archives, fast? Kuroka, who had just dropped an angelic infiltrator through a temporary void, glanced at him, a flicker of understanding in her deep eyes. Hold on tight, Naruto-kun. She grabbed his arm. E-world spun in a dizzying vortex of shadows and light. A heartbeat later, they materialized in a long, dark corridor beneath the mansion. The air here was damp and cool, smelling of ancient parchment and dust. Ahead, the low growl of Ophidian beasts rumbled, and the sounds of stone cracking filled the air. They're breaking through the old seal, Kuroka whispered, her cat-like senses picking up the subtle shifts in the air. This wing, it houses something very old, very powerful. They burst into a large, circular chamber. It wasn't a typical archive filled with shelves of books. Instead, it was dominated by a massive stone plinth in the center, covered in runes that were far older and more complex than any Naruto had seen before. Surrounding it, a dozen Ophidian beasts gnawed at the plinth, their teeth glowing with violet energy, slowly chipping away at its ancient wards. They're trying to release whatever's inside, Naruto realized, his gut twisting. No, Kuroka said, her eyes fixed on the plinth. They're trying to destroy it. This is the seal of the first devil. Naruto felt a jolt. The one that can contain Ophus's essence. The very same, Kuroka confirmed, her voice laced with urgency. It was created by the first devil lords to contain primordial energies. If it's destroyed, then Valkyrie has removed the last viable option for containing Ophus without resorting to her weaponization scheme. The largest Ophidian beast, a grotesque creature with multiple limbs and a gaping maw, turned its attention from the plinth to them, letting out a shriek that rattled the very bones of the chamber. Naruto-kun, protect the seal, Kuroka commanded, her voice firm. I'll hold them back. Kuroka moved like a phantom, her space-time manipulation becoming a deadly dance. She opened rifts beneath the Ophidian beasts, sending them plummeting into temporary voids, or warped their attacks back upon themselves. But the creatures were relentless, their sheer numbers and raw, corrupted power a serious threat. One managed to lash out, its claw tearing a deep gash across Kuroka's arm. She hissed, but continued her defense. Naruto didn't hesitate. He entered Sage mode, the golden aura flaring, his senses expanding. He focused not just on fighting, but on understanding the runes on the plinth. They pulsed with a faint, steady rhythm, resisting the Ophidian beast's destructive efforts. He engaged the monsters, his movements a blur of calculated aggression. Each punch, each kick, each Rasengan was aimed at their core, their corrupted energy. He couldn't let them destroy the seal. Not now, not when hope felt so close. He found himself battling three at once, their multiple limbs flailing, their jaws snapping. He narrowly dodged a poisonous spray, then countered with a rapid succession of Rasengans, blasting two of them into shattered remnants. The last one, however, was massive, its skin like obsidian, its eyes burning with pure Ophis energy. This one was different. It didn't just attack, it tried to envelop him, its corrupted aura seeking to bind and corrupt his own chakra. Naruto felt a chilling touch of Ophis's raw, ancient power, a whisper of cosmic indiffer. NCE that threatened to snuff out his will. Not a chance. Naruto roared, pouring every ounce of his Sage Mode chakra into a massive Rasenshuriken. The spinning vortex of wind and chakra hummed with lethal energy, mirroring the ancient runes on the seal. He threw it. The Rasenshuriken tore through the Ophidian beast, shredding it into 1,000 pieces of violet light that evaporated into nothingness. The impact sent a shockwave that reverberated through the chamber, rattling the very foundations of the mansion. Silence. Only the heavy breathing of Naruto and Kuroka remained. Kuroka leaned against a crumbling archway, clutching her injured arm. Well done, Naruto-kun. That was impressive. Naruto walked over to the seal of the first devil. He placed his hands on the plinth, feeling the faint tremor of its power. The runes shimmered under his touch, as if recognizing a kindred spirit. It's weakened, he noted, his Sage Mode senses detecting the minute cracks and stress fractures. But not broken. We need to activate it, Kuroka said, pushing herself off the wall. But it requires a powerful source of primordial energy. A binding agent, if you will. Something that resonates with both creation and destruction. Naruto looked at the seal, then at Kuroka, then back to the plinth. His eyes widened. My chakra. Kuroka nodded. Your Nine Tails chakra, combined with your natural energy mastery, could be the key. It's a force that exists between the divine and the profane, much like the first devil lords themselves. Before they could begin, the ground above them rumbled violently. The entire mansion seemed to shift on its foundations. A low, guttural roar echoed, this time far more potent, far more ancient. It was the sound of a sleeping titan stirring, no longer content to simply dream. Ophis, Kuroka breathed, her eyes wide with concern. She's waking. Valkyrie's gambit worked. The chaos has fueled her. Naruto looked at the seal of the first devil. This was it. The final stand. The battle outside was a diversion. The real fight was here, now, in this ancient chamber. He took a deep breath, focusing his Sage Mode. He extended his hands towards the plinth, channeling Kurama's chakra, mixing it with his own natural energy. A golden red aura flared, enveloping the ancient stone. The runes on the plinth began to glow, responding to the raw, untamed power. Suddenly, Rias, Akeno, and Sarah burst into the chamber, battered but resolute. They had fought their way through the collapsing mansion, drawn by the surge of energy. What's happening? Rias demanded. Hurry. Yes, immediately falling on Naruto and the glowing seal. Naruto is activating the seal of the first devil, Kuroka explained, quickly outlining the situation. It's our only chance to contain Ophis. But it needs more power. And time. The roar from above intensified. The ceiling of the chamber began to crack, raining debris. The residual energy of Ophis was trying to overwhelm the mansion, to reach its full form. Then we buy him time, Rias declared, crimson power flaring from her body. She unleashed a massive wave of destruction, shoring up the crumbling archways, her strength a bulwark against the collapsing structure. Akeno, her hybrid wings fully deployed, summoned twin bolts of holy and demonic lightning, blasting away the falling debris. No one touches him. Sarah, her fallen angel contingent right behind her, added her own dark flames, forming a defensive perimeter around Naruto, facing the onslaught of Ophus's raw energy that now seeped through every crack in the chamber. Naruto closed his eyes, concentrating. The power pouring from him was immense, a torrent of pure life force and destructive energy. He felt the ancient runes humming under his hands, absorbing his chakra, slowly, painstakingly. Reactivating the seal, it was like trying to patch a dam with his bare hands while the floodwaters raged. He could hear the battle outside, fading but still present. The Grimoire, Y household and their allies were pushed to their breaking point. But here, in this chamber, he was the fulcrum. It's not enough, Naruto gritted out, straining. The seal needs more. It's too weak. Rias looked at him, her heart aching. She knew what she had to do. She moved forward, placing her hands on his shoulders, channeling her own power into him. Her crimson aura blended with his golden red, a symphony of destruction and creation. Take it, Naruto, she whispered, her voice fierce. Take all of it, we're in this together. Akeno followed, placing her hands on Rias's back, her holy lig. HTNING and demonic magic flowing through her queen, into Naruto. You're not fighting alone, she said, her eyes fixed on his determined face. Kuroka, despite her injury, moved to Naruto's other side, placing her hand on his arm. Her space-time manipulation, usually so distinct, now merged with the flow, creating a stable conduit for the immense power. We stand with you, Naruto-kun, she vowed. The combined powers surged into Naruto, fueling the seal of the first devil. The runes on the plinth flared violently, casting vibrant light across the chamber. Naruto's body glowed, a beacon of defiance against the encroaching chaos. The raw, ancient energy from the seal resonated with his own, binding the very essence of Ophus. The roars from above began to fade, replaced by a low, drawn-out groan that echoed with cosmic pain. The mansion, though still damaged, stabilized. The cracks in the ceiling sealed themselves. The Ophidian creatures outside, deprived of their power source, withered and turned to dust. A blinding flash erupted from the plinth. When the light faded, the seal of the first devil pulsed with a steady, violet glow, emanating a subtle hum of contained power. Ophus was still there. Naruto could feel it, a vast, slumbering presence, but it was bound, contained. Naruto collapsed, exhausted, into the arms of Rias, Akeno, and Kuroka. Their combined strength had pulled him through, and now, they supported him. A tableau of unity amidst the dust and silence. It's done, Naruto whispered, his voice raspy. Rias hugged him tightly, relief washing over her. You did it, Naruto. You saved us. Akeno leaned her head against his shoulder, a silent testament to her gratitude. Kuroka simply tightened her grip on his arm, her eyes shining with an emotion Naruto couldn't quite decipher. Outside, the last of Valkyrie's forces had vanished. The battle was over, for now. Suddenly, a cold, mocking voice echoed in the chamber. A temporary reprieve, Shinobi. You have delayed the inevitable. But Ophus is restless. She will break free. And when she does, your feeble seal will be meaningless. The tribunal will return, and the choice will be taken from you. Valkyrie's voice faded, leaving a chilling promise hanging in the air. Naruto looked at the seal of the first devil, pulsing faintly in the center of the chamber. He knew she was right. This was just a bandage. A temporary measure. Ophus was still out there. Her power merely dormant, not destroyed. And the celestial tribunal would not give up. But as he looked at Rias, her eyes full of warmth and trust, and Akeno, our strength renewed and her loyalty absolute, and Kuroka, her mysterious gaze now holding a hint of genuine affection, he knew one thing for certain. He wasn't alone, and together, they would find a better way. He still had a world to save, and a god to teach about coexistence. The activated seal hummed, a silent guardian in the heart of the Grimoire mansion. The ground beneath them still vibrated faintly, a constant reminder of the sleeping power it contained. Weary triumph mixed with an enduring sense of foreboding. The gambit had been weathered, but the game was far from over. Chapter 6 End.